All right, guys, we are back. This is K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. You're listening to the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki. Our special guest today is Trevor Thompson, and he is about to share with us the Nightmare Story. It is Nightmare Story segment time. So, Trevor, take it away.
I really like how you prepare for this segment because there are some mistakes that you and I have watched other investors or business people commit that have changed the way we have done business always, right?
Right.
And we've never had to go through this on our own properties.
Right.
So I really like the idea of learning from someone else's mistakes. I have a couple of things that come to my mind when I think nightmare stories, particularly with when the market changes. Brought to my mind a closing that I had in 2008. This was September of 2008, and this was just after banks had started going out of business.
Okay.
So at the time, I was operating mainly as a buyer's agent.
Got it.
And I had a client who moved to Utah from out of state. They had a job in technology, which a lot of people are moving to Utah right now for Silicon Slopes.
Yep.
And they're working with technology companies in Lehigh.
That's right.
Okay, this is exactly where this story happens. I had a client move here. He had a job with IMFT Flash Technologies, which at the time was a big up-and-coming employer.
Wow.
And they were under contract. Their loan was ready to go. And banks started going out of business.
Scary.
And their loan became in jeopardy of maybe we won't be able to close. And in a matter of about 7 days, maybe a week, okay, their interest rates jumped 2%,
wow,
3%, 4%. And where they had been looking at a loan in the 5% range, they were now facing, you can still buy your house, this bank will do it. They haven't closed, but their interest rate is 9%.
Whew.
And this is the only closing. I've been a real estate agent since 2005, so 15 years, and this is the only closing I've ever sat at the closing table and looked my client in the eye and said to them, you do not have to sign. Your earnest money will be gone.
Yeah.
But the financing clause in a purchase contract gives you the right to walk away because financing is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And, you know, I found myself encouraging them not to sign.
Yeah.
And of course, that's a very difficult situation where there's pressure and you're thinking about moving into this home and you've been excited for it for, you know, a month as it goes. And they made the decision to close, to sign.
Got it. Okay.
So we closed. They moved into the home. And as I think about what happened next, this is what reinforces to me, if you will find yourself in this situation where the market is changing and you're faced with walk away from your home and continue to rent or find another place to live or close on a house with terms that are not good for your family, this put them in a situation where they were right at the very top of what they could actually afford in mortgage payment.
Got it.
Which meant they had no extra money.
Got it.
Okay? In 2008, the recession here in Utah at least lasted until, I think, 2011, 2012 is when the actual bottom point in the real estate market was.
Right.
But the job market was not very nice. And they struggled for 2-3 years making a payment that was really high, and then ultimately they ended up changing careers, moving out of state in a situation where now they couldn't sell their home and they were upside down.
Yeah.
And you know, looking back at this, they ended up being in a situation where I believe they lost the house, and it turned out not being very good. So this is a true nightmare story from the perspective of the public and the client.
Right.
My cautionary tale from this is, if terms are changing wildly, consider the possibility of walking away. You might be in a position where you have to rent at a high rate temporarily.
Right.
But as the market corrected in 2008, 2009, if you remember, rental rates were very affordable because there were a lot of empty houses that investors owned.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
In fact, I know people who were moving into properties and paying less than $500 in rent only because if an owner had somebody living in the house,
Yep.
it requires less less repairs and fix up,
Yep.
and it keeps the utilities on and
Yep.
functioning, and you'd be surprised how much good it does a house just to have a person living there.
Yep.
So if I had to go through that, I think I would consider not closing on a home that I didn't like, and figuring out the market as a renter in a down market like that until it became a better situation to buy.
Got it. You know, interestingly, you say that. I know an investor that owns a fourplex in Sugar House.
Okay.
These tenants were with him back when they were paying $600 a month in rent. And they weathered the whole recession, and you know, he told them, listen, if you guys stick around, I promise I won't raise the price. In 2020, they're still paying $600.
Wow. And now they'll never move.
And now they'll never move. Yeah.
You can't replace that kind of rent.
No kidding. In Sugar House.
Yeah.
It's like insane. That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Trevor. I know you'd mentioned you had another one. If you don't mind sharing, I'm
Yeah.
definitely interested in hearing.
Oh, we have no shortage of nightmare stories.
Yeah, neither do I.
You know, my job is different with almost every client. And this last summer, so maybe about 9 months ago, I had 2 clients at the same time, one in Ogden and one in Magna. And the one in Magna, I met with them, and they had a buyer that was already ready to buy their house, and they weren't quite sure if that one person was going to do it. But I told this client, you know what? If you have the buyer, if we don't have to put the sign in the yard, if we don't have to advertise, what I can do for you is manage the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And when I manage a transaction like that, typical real estate agent rates are anywhere from 6% is,
Yeah.
par, right?
Yeah, right.
So I tell people I will manage the transaction for 1%.
Got it.
Okay? What we do is we look over the contract, we coordinate with the title company, we work with the lender, and basically it's minimum services.
Yeah.
But it's services that are important for somebody that doesn't know how to do what they're doing.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
So that happened, that transaction happened flawlessly. That buyer did purchase the transaction. Well, it just so happened that at the same time, I had a client in Ogden,
Uh-huh.
and we listed her home, and this was a normal listing, the full marketing.
Yeah.
We were fixing a few things for her. We really did the full service deal, and my agreement with her was the going rate. It was 6%. Well, when we got to closing, they both closed the same week, and I had a challenge where my title company knew what the numbers were correctly for the Magna house,
Yes.
and somehow incorrectly also applied that number to the Ogden property.
Oh gosh.
So we got through closing, and I have to admit, on the day that I went to closing, I was there.
Yeah.
I was at the table, I looked my client in the eye, I said, wonderful, we're moving forward, and I had an appointment to go to, so I left the room
Ah,
right before they went over the HUD settlement statement,
got it.
which is when I would have caught it.
Yes.
Okay, so what should have been for my office and for my team a 3% commission ended up being a 1% commission.
Oh.
Okay, and it closed. They funded. They sent the seller all of her funds, and of course she was in a position where she was using the money from the sale of this house to pay off all her debts, which she did immediately.
Oh geez.
So by the time we caught the error,
Yes.
there was no money
It
left.
was gone.
Yeah, and that was kind of a big hit.
Yeah.
I mean, emotionally.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we and myself, I'm in a position where, this was one deal that it would have been nice to get what we worked for, but I take the attitude of I'm not going to really beat somebody up who's not in as fortunate a position as I happen to be.
Yeah.
And I consider myself very lucky for that, because I've definitely had my downturns also.
Yes.
So we decided to not fight over it and to let it go and wish her well.
Yeah.
But that was, as a real estate investor, check those settlement statements, check your numbers. This was an easily avoidable mistake.
Right.
And I take all the blame.
Yeah.
There are processors and there are people who assist you at the title company, but it is not their job to protect my business. It's
Right.
my job to protect my business.
Right.
So, I think the title company even offered to make us whole,
Mm.
and I actually refused that because, it's my job to make sure that
Right.
that we have correct numbers.
Right.
So a little bit embarrassing, but
Yeah.
but yeah, we could have done a lot better on that one.
Right. And it's true, because there's so many times where it just becomes second nature. You don't even look at these things anymore.
So many of our transactions happen flawlessly.
Yeah.
And especially when you get to the closing table and the numbers are correct, that it's easy to fall into that comfortable mode
Yep.
of just trusting that it's okay.
Exactly.
But I can tell you, check every settlement statement.
That's great advice. Great advice. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that nightmare story. We're going to take another commercial break. When we come back, I've got some questions that I want to ask Trevor. We're going to go the step-by-step of flipping a house, but curious to see if in each step of flipping a house, they're doing anything particularly different now due to the coronavirus potential recession that people are talking about that might be on its way. So, don't go anywhere. We are going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Yoshi Shiraki, the author of the book, My Body's Just For Me, the book written for children to educate children on the prevention of child abuse. With the assistance of multiple best-selling author Richard Paul Evans, we were able to publish this book as a tool to help break the ice in an easy and innocent way to help children understand and learn how to speak up and communicate. I have been invited numerous times onto Good Things Utah to discuss the importance of good communication with your child in regards to abuse, and also to discuss how the book, My Body's Just For Me, is a great tool for every parent when having that tricky conversation with their children. And for more information on the book, My Body's Just For Me, please visit www.protectourangels.com today. And remember, the more we focus on prevention, the less we'll have to focus on rehabilitation.